And they even showed the third prince how his own brother swings a sword indiscriminately. And do they really not respect Heron? And if you look at the scale, this is not the twins' personal decision. And how can those idiots from the Heavenly Demon Pavilion do such crazy things? The fat man started to leave and shouted after Kanu that next time he would definitely send him to hell. Kan told him to shut up and called him a fat, runaway pig. He himself also asked where they were running off to. Hawk suggested that they chase after them, but one of the disciples told them to stop, and if they chased after them, they would only be at a loss. And Samu, with Miss Tan, should examine the seventh divine sword. After all, he is most worried about his condition, and since they are from the Tang clan in Sichuan, they are the best at medicine here. He asked himself why they were taking so long to feel his pulse. Maybe she fell in love with the seventh divine sword? Mrs. Tang replied to her brother. Was he crazy, or did he just want her dead? She was just checking to see if he had any internal injuries. And anyway, he was not her type. Roan heard their screams and said that he had thought about it before. It was strange. Where did he go? Chung Hong asked the boy if he was overtired. Roan replied that no, he was talking about June. And why was he nowhere to be seen? At that moment in the dark night, the chief received the news and was surprised. The chief asked again, what had come to him? The bloody blade Cal Heben? And why did this happen in the territory of Udan when that child was there? The warrior replied that fortunately, according to the urgent report from the head of the Shadowless Squad, not only the third prince, but also the disciples, including his daughter, were safe. And the location of one disciple from the Huashan faction is unknown, but presumably he simply fled the battlefield. And should I notify the Celestial Warrior Academy and send reinforcements? The warrior asked. The chief replied that they would postpone it. The director of the academy had probably already received this information. If they acted hastily, a political war would break out. And the most important thing to do now is to tell him the news about his two sons. The fact that his sons were suddenly drawn into a fratricidal massacre means that someone is turning a blind eye to the leader of the Dark Alliance. And therefore, he must be the first one to tell him this news. Khan and the rest of the guys started searching, and at that moment he shouted for everyone to stop. Hawk said that from the sniffing results using the tracking technique that is passed down in the beggar gang and is his specialty, there is something similar to Junho's trace. Ms. Tang asked, what the hell is this again? What kind of technique is this for tracking down a gang of beggars? Do they think they're hunting rabbits now? And she started shouting that they were useless idiots. There was no point in wasting their energy, and they should immediately step aside. She would now show them the technique of tracking the Tang clan. Hawk replied that he only had an hour. At least he grabbed something that looked like Junho, and she was no use at all. Or did she think that if they came back empty-handed, their senior classmate would just let it go? Tan got angry and asked what he was talking about. Did he think that person would praise them for catching the rabbit? And her tracking skills were much better. Now she would try again. The girl came up to her and asked her to stop. And the problem is not whose technique is better. After all, in the Red Falcon team, except for Hyunun and Gyum Yunho, these two have the best search techniques, but they have not found any traces for 3 hours. So either Yunho soared to the skies or went to the Wuding faction, where they haven't looked yet. There are only two options. Hawk replied that he couldn't fly, so that leaves only the Wuding faction. But why would he go there alone? Tan also remembered and asked when the four who went to Wuding school for help would come. And then Namgung said that he had another question then. Did they by any chance detain a disciple from the Huashan faction? San asked him what he thought they would tell him. The student replied that she was right, and he thought that Junho wasn't with them. And if that were the case, they would have already threatened them, using him as a hostage. And there were too many of them here to block the road to the Wudong school. The mercenary stepped forward and said that if they understood everything, then let them return. The girl answered the commander that this was good, and there are too many of them, so the first thing to do is tell your mentor and senior classmate. The student replied that he agreed with Jiren's words. In any case, they wouldn't have let them into the main building of the school. On the other side of the forest, the chief was heading towards Wudong, but a group of mercenaries came out in front of him and wouldn't let them in. The leader said that he was curious as to who they were that dared to block his path on the lands of the Wudong school. The mercenary replied that the Wuding school did indeed have many buildings and a street here, But they hadn't spent all the money to buy the entire mountain, had they? They had their own business on the mountain. There was no need to worry about them. The man shouted at them not to pull the wool over their eyes. How would they explain why they had surrounded the camp that they had provided to the students of the Heavenly Warriors Academy as a training ground? The leader said that they were guests of the Wudong faction, that they had come to receive their instructions. Let them get out of their way immediately. The mercenary asked, "What if not? Are those who are so proud of the prestige of their school really going to kill them all?" The warriors immediately prepared themselves and shouted at them that they were scoundrels. And even if there were students from the main building among them, they would not sit idly by. But suddenly Khan appeared, grabbed one mercenary and said that they didn't need help, and there was no need to worry about them and let them go on vacation. And this is all part of practical learning. Don't deprive them of this chance to learn. Khan understood that even if that devil had ordered it, why should he say this nonsense? What was going on in his head anyway? At that moment, Heron was lying in the hospital room and suddenly opened his eyes in the morning. Chung Hong saw him and asked, "Is he awake yet?" Heron came out into the real world and shouted to his brother in fear. Chung Hong calmed him down and said that he had a broken rib, so he should lie down. Heron asked how he was. Chung Hong asked him what about Mo and Hui. Surprisingly, his internal injuries are not serious. Tan and Gayam are looking after him. There is no need to worry. He can rest assured the attackers took that man with them. Heron suddenly turned his head and saw that more people had come to him. It was Sul. She said she was glad he was awake. She was so worried that he had been unconscious for so long. Heron replied that he was fine. Chung Hong told Lady Rin that he was, of course, sorry, but if the two of them left. But Rin interrupted him and said that she had something to ask Heron's student. Sol was also surprised and asked what exactly she wanted to know from him. Chung Hong was wondering why the Ice Phoenix was in the room all this time, and she probably guessed who Heron was. Rin said it wouldn't take long. But then suddenly someone opened the door and asked the guy if he was awake. It was Ruin who asked Heron if they could talk. Left alone, the boy kept thinking about what they would talk about. Ruin decided to say that he wasn't the one who should start the conversation. Since he was so kind and handsome, he could wait a little longer. Heron replied that no, and he had nothing to say to him. And since he had nothing either, he would like to be alone. But Ruin told the boy that he was so confused in the morning that he needed to clarify. Those people who attacked them, how close is he to them? Maybe there is someone there he shouldn't kill. At this time in the Dark Alliance, in the palace of the Heavenly Messenger, the scout came and said that he had urgent news that must be conveyed personally to the current heavens from the White-Yellow Yun. The servant told him to follow him. He asked the scout how many people besides him knew about the urgent news from the White-Yellow Yun. In the Pavilion of Dark Messages, he means. The scout replied that, in accordance with procedure, mercenaries suddenly appeared behind him and put a knife in front of his throat. The servant said that there were 5 of them, and here it is, a continuous headache, and he ordered his mercenaries to clean up so that there would be no blood left here. And it looks like I'll have to tell the boss everything. And of course, after it's all over. Heron decided to continue the conversation with him and asked, "What if there is no one like that? Then he will kill everyone too." Ruin didn't answer him right away, but he gave him a contract to watch. Heron asked, "What if he asks him not to kill anyone? Will he let everyone go?" Ruin replied that he would look again. Maybe so. So what was his answer? Heron replied that in the end, he would do as he wanted anyway. So instead of asking such questions, it would be better to honestly say what he wanted. Ruin asked what he was talking about. Heron replied that he had called the man brother, but no, the boy would find out who he was, right? Ruin asked why he needed it if he already knew. Or did he turn into an idiot because the man hit him on the head? Heron was surprised and asked him if he already knew who he was. Ruin replied that his name was Heron, and why should he care who he called brother? Did he suddenly want to introduce him to his family? And did Heron really think this was his last chance when he was asked the question? Heron remembered being told that he was the second son of the leader of the Dark Alliance, the younger brother of the Great Prince. They expected a lot from him, and all those who came from the line of the demon warrior for generations were extraordinary individuals. And after that, they condemned him and asked if he knew how many people his brother had killed. How dared he show himself to them? And both the elder and the younger can only rage and excuse themselves from everything in the name of their family. And we need to take revenge by tearing him to pieces. Heron had told them earlier that he too did not want to say whose relative he was and whose younger brother. When people found out about it, whether it was the forces of darkness or light, there was no place for him anywhere. Ruin told Heron that he was so nervous now that he almost hit him. If he keeps whining about something that has nothing to do with him, how does he like the idea of making the service a paid service? The cost is one hit. Heron suddenly started laughing and said that he really didn't care. And Ruin was the strangest of all he had seen. Ruin decided to leave and told him to rest. And he wanted to hit him so badly for calling him weird. But he had a serious headache, so he forgave him. Suddenly, Heron asked him to stop and asked if he could help him. In the forest at this time, the dungeon guards were saying that another person had died at the hands of this psycho. The second guard asked him to be quiet. Otherwise, he could be next. The old man was in the dungeon at that moment and said that for the first time, so much effort was required for one guy. And if you don't repeat the spell from time to time, it keeps dissipating. And if that bastard hadn't pushed out the bloody jade token, they wouldn't have had so much trouble with it. But Fatty replied that in any case, the bloody jade token hadn't worked. So what was there to grumble about? How much longer would it take for him to be able to fight again? The old man replied that the boy, the grandson of the Holy Sword, possessed pure sword energy, which was the complete opposite of his spell energy. It was a great shock, so at this rate it would take about 10 days. The fat man was upset and said that everything was complicated, but he wanted to send the little red dog on a journey through the afterlife as soon as possible. The old man got angry and said he didn't give a damn what he wanted. But if we dragged things out, this guy would become a real headache, and it would be much harder. The old man threw the box into his hands and told him to feed it to him when he gave the signal. It would be a pity if he died, of course, but now it was the only option. The fat man opened it and asked what it was. The old man replied that it was a demonic spirit pill. He worked hard for 10 years to create this medicine. With its help, they will be able to solve the problem in 3 days. But if you use it, there will be no turning back. The guy was merciless at that moment, but they managed to hook him on a chain. At that moment, El told Moen that he couldn't get up yet. Moen replied that he was perfectly fine, but the guy refused him and said that although his condition was better than they thought, they needed to be more careful. He's still being treated, so he can't get up until Sholyun says it's okay. But Sam said the same thing, that now he will pull out the needles, give the medicine, and that will be the end of his work. Then he can do whatever he wants, even dance or fight to the death. But if he got up before he recovered, the blood and energy would flow in the opposite direction, and he would remain a cripple. Moen lay down on the bed and said that he felt like he was on a resort. El laughed and replied that he was right. After all, in the best-case scenario, he would be back to normal in about 5 days. Hung was with them too and said that he was lucky to have someone to look after him. And since he saw that Moen had woken up, he should go to the next room. He was probably awake too. He turned around and asked, "Heron?" Recently, a newbie with bangs over his eyes said that he should be left completely alone. El also said that Mentor Flameblade said that there was no need to worry about him. Hung asked them if they thought the most important thing now was to leave Heron's disciple alone. Was he the only one who noticed his strange behavior? But judging by the sounds of kin, the time for absolute peace has passed. And these sounds, are they kin? The girl also heard this and said that although they were not particularly hurt, but wow, someone decided to devote their free time to kin. It was definitely Ryuan's disciple. And she wondered why he did this? But why did she feel calmer knowing that an older classmate was here? The student was talking to his friend and asked him what he thought. That there would be no help from the elders? Tan also said that it means they are surrounded and isolated. Hawk replied that it means their food supply has been cut off. They can eat meat and grass, but they can't touch rice and noodles. Kan thought about it and said that since it was like that, he told them not to interfere, because this was their chance to train. The weaklings should stick to him, and those who are confident in their strength should risk their lives to grow. One of the students answered that she was confident in herself, but in her head she envied Junho for running away. The others also started shouting that they were confident in themselves, and they would definitely be able to grow. But the lady thought, why doesn't anyone care that a dumb freshman plays the chin? All they talk about is being surrounded and needing to find rice and noodles. She was still wondering, why are they all acting like this? They are even weirder. The students were unhappy about this and said that Ryun had kicked them out with such a serious look and was now playing the shin. Saul said that the sound died down, and it seemed that the process of healing Mr. Heron's mind with music was over. Chung-hung replied that he was probably doing it out of boredom. In any case, their important conversation was over. But he wondered what she was talking about. Could someone who had broken his ribs cure something with cinema? Of course he asked him about his brother, although their fool is such a fool. Sol suddenly said that she was a little surprised that Rin also wanted to talk to Mr. Heron. But could she find out what she wanted to talk to him about? Rin replied that she better not ask. It wasn't the topic she was so mad about. Chung Hong told them that if you think about it, the White Ice Phoenix has a lot to talk about with Heron. But why is she waiting here for so long? Sol replied that she was just following Rin, and Mr. Heron was very kind, and he and she both used twin swords. Sometimes they would work out together, and he would bring her shashlik and bellflower root, and the effect of bellflower root is as good as ginseng. She actually felt stronger after eating it. Overall, she is so grateful to Heron for his kindness that she wants to support him. Suddenly, Ruin came out and said that Heron was very sick. Apparently because the man hit him on the head too hard, he developed a severe exhaustion disease. Saul immediately became frightened and began to shout that Heron had a severe exhaustion disease. "And what kind of disease is this?" she asked. Ruin replied that it was a disease in which a life-threatening injury causes the head to function abnormally. And the person is in such a state that it seems to him that the whole world is about to collapse, and he himself is poor and unhappy. And from this, he even wants to attack the enemy camp in search of death. In this state, he needs fists more than care and support. Chung Hung was shocked and said that Heron wanted to attack the enemy camp. What kind of metaphor is this? Ruin replied that it was not a metaphor. He was speaking literally. He needed to find out something from the gang in black, so he left. And he decided to play the chin a little. Chung Hung got angry and asked why he didn't grab him right away and threaten him with his fist. Why did he remain silent and play at all? But he realized and said that now is not the time to be angry, and asked where and how long ago he ran away. Ruin replied that about 15 minutes ago. He ran out of the back window to the left. Saul also turned around and suddenly stopped for a second. Saul asked if there was any more specific information that he hadn't told that old geezer. Ruin replied that there was a reed field about 15 minutes northeast of their camp. Heron was there, but suddenly Rin told him that she would like to ask what he was thinking. But first she needed to inform the Flame Blade Master and the Red Falcon team. Ruin told her that it was already late. Maybe she should watch something interesting with him. Heron was already in the forest at this point and was telling the mercenaries that they either give way to him now or answer his questions. And they have to choose only one of the two. Otherwise, he will simply cut his own throat, and then whoever planned this will be in big trouble. Suddenly, someone called him the third prince and said that if he killed himself, they would all die too. They only follow orders from above and know nothing. And if they disobey orders, not only they will die, but their families too. So basically, they have no choice. If he wants to end his life, he can just do it. And then they'll just say that the crazy former great prince did this to his younger brother. Heron asked him if he thought that because someone grew up in isolation, they knew nothing. They were evil spirits, guided by the blade of the Lord of the Underworld. They had no family to begin with. But it's even a pity. He thinks that if he dies here, he won't be able to continue to indulge his desires. After all, before coming here, he took some measures. And if anything happens to him here, the man he can never kill will bring his father a message written in his blood. Someone had incited the twin assassins of heaven and earth to take control of his older brother and come here in an attempt to kill the children of the leader of the Dark Alliance and thus start a rebellion. Earlier, Heron told his friend that if something happened to him and he couldn't return, he should definitely tell his father. Ruin took the letter and said that there is another sky under the heavens. Because of this, the heavens above will lose the phoenix and the dragon. Ruin asked the boy what he wanted him to give this to the director of the Heavenly Warrior Academy. Is he his father? Ruin laughed and asked the boy that his real name was Peng Heron. So Miss Peng was his older sister? Heron replied that no way. He only asked because he couldn't send thunder to the Heavenly Alliance of Darkness. Since he didn't want war either, the director would send a message to his real father. And his father is the leader of the Heavenly Alliance of Darkness. Ruin understood everything and asked the guy how much he would give him. Heron was surprised and asked again what to give. Ruin replied that he hadn't come to him with such a request empty-handed, had he? He wants him to call his little precious bird to such places just to send this stupid message, right? Heron asked, wasn't his bird nearby? He saw that on the way here he periodically blew his whistle. Wasn't that to signal him? Ruin replied that of course he was not far, but it was his bird, not someone else's. The fee was 1 gold piece, and the money was always in advance, and if there was no prepayment, then for each day of delay, plus 10% to the amount. Heron said he would agree to a loan with installments. I would pay another 1 silver coin if he gave him the uniform in 15 minutes to sneak out of here. Ruin shook hands and said that they had agreed on a deal, and for a loan of 1 silver 5% per day. Heron replied that he was very lucky to have someone as calculating as Ryan among his friends, but he felt that he should not have gotten involved in Ryan's loan sharking business. Heron told his enemies that if they opened the way to his brother or told him how to get to him, he would simply silently let them get away with it. Heron had already mentally apologized to Ryan because if he died here, it would be difficult for him to receive compensation. The man said that it was true that tigers don't give birth to dogs, but he was wasting his time. He would meet his brother in 3 days anyway. What was the rush? Heron asked how they would meet in 3 days, and why exactly in 3 days. The man replied that he didn't need to know that. In any case, the place was surrounded in such a way that not a single bird could fly past, so he didn't have to worry and commit suicide or whatever he wants to do. And since there is a message in the blood, all we need to do is grab that person and deal with him. The man waved his sword and ordered his servants to seize him. Better alive, but it's not scary even if he's dead. The mercenaries all pounced on him at once, but Heron slowly retreated and killed one after another. At that moment, Ruin and Ren were in the forest and were just behind Heron. Suddenly, Ryan grabbed her hand and told her to come over for a minute. Ruin told her that it was all fun to watch and asked her to wait a little longer. Ren replied that his life was in danger. Does he think that it's not worth helping? Ruin replied that she shouldn't worry. He would guarantee Heron's safety because he doesn't plan on working at a loss. And now the most interesting part begins. Heron immediately began to fight the mercenaries because he had to stay alive at all costs. But for a moment he saw Sul running out of the forest, and the mercenary's sword was heading straight for her. Heron turned around and shouted that it was her, but Sul dodged the attack and shouted to the master that he was being attacked from behind. Sul simply jumped into Heron's arms and repelled 2 attacks from the mercenaries, saving the master's life. Heron asked Miss Lee to stop, and hugging her, he asked her for forgiveness. Sul also decided to fight them and answered that he would forgive her too, and she killed one of the enemies. Hyun and the others came to the place and said that they finally found the place and asked what kind of situation this is. Chung Hong replied that he himself did not know, but for some reason he did not really want to help, and they saw Ryuan and Ren behind the stone. Ruin was surprised and said that he had thought to show this interesting sight only to her, but the boys had come running faster than expected, and he asked Rin if she wanted to try dates. Rin didn't refuse and took a couple of pieces from him, but during the battle, Heron still apologized to her for this happening so often, and he himself understood that he needed to let her go as soon as possible. But for some reason his hands seemed to have gone numb and could not tear themselves away from Miss Lee. Saul replied that there was nothing to be done about it, and let him forgive her for it too. And in her head she didn't understand where she was at all, and she was in the arms of Mr. Heron, and what should she do next? And suddenly Ruin saw someone and said that this grandpa really was an unexpected guest. Grandpa came out of the forest and asked why there were so many sparrows here too. Lately, there have been a lot of strange children on Wudong Mountain. No peace at all. The man immediately after seeing the old man ordered his men to retreat. Grandfather started laughing and warned them to be careful on the way. Heron was upset that they all ran away and his plan didn't work. Saul asked the master at this point if they would pursue them. Heron replied that they would not, and if they followed them, they would only be in danger. After all, they also said that in 3 days he would still meet his brother. Grandpa saw this and began to say that usually when surrounded by enemies, people fight back to back. For the first time, he saw someone doing it while hugging. Heron told the lady that because of him, she was in such danger and he was very sorry. Sol replied that everything was fine. That was how she repaid him for the bell route he gave her. But grandfather was still unhappy and said that recently Mount Wudong was full of strange children. There was no peace. Then Hung came up to him and said that the master had surprised him greatly. And why had he come so suddenly and scared everyone? And what was in his bag anyway? Chung Hung looked closely and replied that there was a person there. Hung told the master that he saw it too, and was there really a corpse there? Grandfather let go of the bag and asked, "What corpse? It may not be in the best condition, but it is alive. He is a Taoist with a horse's face. Would he kill someone and carry the corpse around with him?" Hung replied that he would decide for himself when he saw what was inside. Grandfather opened the bag and said that his student was stupid. And anyway, why didn't he sleep at night, but came to God knows where? Seeing the man, Hung started shouting that it was definitely a corpse and asked who it was. Chung Hung looked closely and said that these were Junho's clothes. Sol got scared and hugged the gentleman and screamed, "How could Mr. Chipmunk die such a cruel death?" Heron asked her not to look. "And that can't be Junho's body. There's no way he would die that easily." Chung Hung looked and said that it was indeed Junho, but there was no need to make a corpse out of a living person. It was just that the allergy symptoms were so strong that he almost died. Hung asked what kind of illness it was. Hung immediately asked the master to explain what had happened. Grandfather began to tell everything, and finally said that he would ask him better. Sol heard these words and sighed and said that he was alive. And this old man made a persimmon out of Mr. Chipmunk. He really is a strong and scary man. Heron replied that it was probably allergies, because that old man didn't do anything, and he could feel Miss Lee's heart beating so fast. "Is she okay?" Chung Hung replied that he thought her heart rate would return to normal once he let her go. They better go and help with Junho. Heron immediately let her go and asked the young lady for forgiveness, because he didn't even think. Sol also walked away and replied that everything was fine. It was just cold at night, and this helped her. And besides, it was a great opportunity to explore the new dual sword technique. Chung Hong replied that he was sorry to interfere between them, but Miss Lee, could she go to the camp and prepare medicine and light a fire, and let Heron help the elder? Hung was surprised and asked if he needed help. Chung Hong replied that Jun Ho needed to be airway cleared, so he wanted to ask them to carry him as carefully as possible. And Heron has a cracked rib, and although he is 25 years old, he has some minor problems with physical fitness. Hung told the boy that if he had the skills to enter the Celestial Warrior Academy, he should be able to overcome his physical limitations and figure things out on his own. Because he needs to check something here. And he pulled out his sword and pointed it at Heron and asked who he was. And how could he predict that Dark Blade Madman's attack? Heron replied that as someone who had studied the art of dual blades, he had the chance to study related martial arts. Hung told the guy that he was talking about the Tai Sword School, but no one had heard of it. Who was his sub? Heron replied that he couldn't tell without the sub's permission. Hung was surprised and said that he would just check everything by personally crossing swords with him, and he hoped that the guy would give it his all. And if he tries to hide his real fighting skills, he will consider him an enemy and the reason for attacking them, and will simply stab him. Saul turned to him and said that Mr. Heron was currently injured. Chung Hong also replied that Miss Lee was right. Besides, they had all just seen how Heron fought the enemies. Hung didn't stop and said that he would check it himself and make sure. He wouldn't look at their relationship if someone interfered, so if they didn't want to get hurt, they had better stay away. Heron realized that there was no way to avoid a fight and told Mrs. Lee and Brother Chang to retreat. But he thought about why his opponent was the third shining sword. If he held back with it, he might die. But everyone present today had seen the path of his brother's blade, so if he gave it his all, he would definitely be exposed. Chung Hong also understood that he couldn't let the third prince reveal himself. And if that was the case, he thought, which of them should he knock out? Hung immediately attacked the guy and shouted at the end to start fighting. Heron even thought that it would be even better if he died. But Chung Hong also entered the battle and released his attack technique. But Seoul also entered the battle and shouted at him not to do it. Seoul didn't have time to run, and after the big explosion, she screamed the name of Mr. Heron. Opening her eyes, she saw Ruan holding an instrument in his hands and playing it. Seoul shouted that Mr. Heron had suddenly become the shaggy gentleman. Ruan asked her if she was disappointed. Shouldn't he have swapped with him? Heron immediately told Miss Lee that he was here. Rin was shocked because the guy was behind him, but only for a moment. Chun Hong also realized that their fool was a real monster, and how did he cope with the ball that he threw? Hung also thought that although he had a strong sword energy, he only wanted to provoke a reaction and apply acupuncture. And perhaps Heron noticed this and tried to take the blow with his whole body. But he immediately began to deny it and understood that no matter how bluff it was, a sword is a sword. but it is so easy to block it. Hung said he thought those who underestimated him and called him a lucky striker were wrong. And why did he block his path? Are you willing to take responsibility? Ruin replied that of course. They were friends after all. And so how much would Heron be willing to give him for a fight with him? In the pavilion, the heads gathered together and discussed the tasks. One of them said that they must provide support, no matter what it costs them. And even though this is Wudang High School, but as the principal already said, aren't the students, including the Red Falcon team, in danger? The snowman replied that if the director had held the same opinion, would he have called only them in the middle of the night to tell them the news? And maybe he plans to leave them there? The director of the academy was simply surprised at this moment and did not expect such a proposal from the snowman. Heron was in shock at this point and couldn't believe that Ruin had said that, and he wondered if he even understood what it meant to take responsibility. Hung said he acknowledged that he had excellent skills, but he did not know if they were sufficient to answer such a question. Ruin told him that if he doesn't believe, he will have to prove it by force. So he asked Heron again, how much will he give him? Everyone was surprised again and didn't even say anything. But Heron told him that in this situation, he knew he would do it, and he showed that he would give double the price. Ruin laughed and told Heron that he shouldn't underestimate himself like that. Jung also asked, are they joking now? And since it comes to that, he will now show them how to act. But suddenly Khan came running and asked what all the noise was raised at night. Kan said that this madman wasn't enough for him. Now here was the excellent student Hung. The guy was surprised and didn't understand what the claims were against him. Kan interrupted him and said, no excuses. No need to start a fight here. Let him leave Ruin's student alone and everyone go to bed. Kan understood in his head that he was saving Hyun from the demon, and he was unhappy. What an idiot he was. Remaining in the forest, he said that the children seemed to have left, and he came here as the boy asked him. But why did he call him? He thought that since this little demon was here, how could he use the voice transmission technique? He knew that he learned everything in hell. Earlier, Ryun had spoken to him with a voice and told the younger disciple to come to the reed field and settle everything. And the count went to 10. When we met, he said that he had a request for him, and it seemed that the guys were having trouble with the base. So in 3 days, a solid foundation had to be laid. Kan was shocked and asked, what is this? And thought the guy was crazy. And what other foundation if for everything in 3 days? The man, hearing the words about leaving them, said that it was impossible. After all, now there are precious daughters of both the director and the head of the Heavenly Alliance. The director replied that everything was correct. His Ren was there too. That was why it would be difficult to send help officially. The man was surprised and asked him what he was talking about. The snowman replied that there was probably something he hadn't told them. And perhaps there is a secret reason why the bloody blade of Kal He-ban appeared there. The director said that as expected from a great mentor. There is a reason. For security reasons, he cannot go into details. But in his opinion, the risk of the bloody blade targeting the students from the school was small. The situation was very different from the bloody night in the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. And vice versa, there is a high probability that he himself will fall at the hands of their children. The biggest problem is that for special reasons, someone whose blood should not be on their hands may also fall. And if something goes wrong, it could lead to an irreversible tragedy. And the Dark Alliance sky will be furious. And maybe someone else too. The snowman understood that the child, whose death would enrage the leader of the Alliance of Darkness and the Demon Warrior. Did he really mean that among the children in the Udon, there were their blood relatives? But it is unlikely that it is someone from the Red Falcons team or senior students. And there remains a trio of people from obscure schools. And from the group of Heavenly Justice, the closest to the dark path. The man grabbed his head and said that it couldn't be that any of their guys had anything to do with the Blade of Darkness. But no, if that were the case, we would have to send a lot more help to prevent such a disaster. Snowman said that it seemed like someone had deliberately created this situation to irritate the Dark Alliance. Sending help now would not only be too late, but would also confirm the false accusations against the boys. The director replied that everything was correct, and it looked like whoever was behind this was planning to frame their boys for murder. If official reinforcements from the Murim Alliance or the Academy arrive, it will look like they are using not only the Wuding School's forces, but also the Alliance's forces to cover up the incident and protect their children. And then the conflict with the people sent by the Dark Alliance will escalate into a full-fledged war? The man asked, then what to do? The director answered that fortunately there is a way out. There is a person who can communicate not only with the Wudong school, but also with the head of the alliance. He will protect the most important people. The snowman said that he didn't know how much he could be trusted, but now he understood why the director called them. And now he understood why his behavior was so suspicious. Then will his people be able to carry out their mission correctly? The snowman said that not only should the disaster be prevented, but that someone should be secretly sent to Wudong as soon as possible to catch the conspirators. And it's very convenient that halfway with the Chongyang Security Company, both the guys from the Black Turtle team under the leadership of Mentor Huang and his Blue Dragons. Until they arrive, all that remains is to pray for peace on Mount Wudong. At this moment, Ren was in the forest, catching people with a rope. Ren heard the knock and realized that it was -1 more. And 2 days passed, and she doesn't understand how many people will get caught like this. She knew that building a solid foundation in 3 days was just crazy. More than half of them had already given up. She thought, what kind of foundation is this? And to move water in a pot with the help of internal energy, holding only the end of a rope, and at such a great distance. She wondered, what is all this for? If she squeezed out a little more, there would be no strength left to support the spiritual technique of returning femininity of the Indian Mahayana. But she doesn't want to lose to the Ice Phoenix. And suddenly Hung said that he doesn't complain about training, but no matter how you look at it, it's strange. But Yun Jun Ho, like Mo Yun Hui, needs to rest, so it's okay. But why isn't Ryu Yun's student participating in the training? But of course, that's not the only thing that's puzzling. And lest Heron think he can get away with it, he'll keep watching. Heron said it was good. He has the power to use voice transmission techniques. Amazing. Can saw their faces and asked why they weren't focused. Let them just wait for the energy and move the vat. There is little time left, so from now on, training will continue without breaks for food and sleep. This especially applies to those from the Red Falcons team who will not make it until tomorrow. And they'll also have some special extra training, together with their student Ryan, who can't participate right now because he's on guard duty. The next day, one of the students shouted that he had succeeded, but Ryan had not even appeared near them all this time, but was resting in the forest. Suddenly, Ruin told someone that he had finally arrived, and how fierce these birds were, apparently thirsty for blood. The night before, someone asked if the Dark Path Alliance was inactive. The leader replied that of course their leader was known for his honesty and fairness. And with his son's lives in danger, that can only mean one thing. There's a spy somewhere close to him, covering his eyes and ears. The warriors said that their warriors had set up a secret camp a day's journey from Mount Wudong, and there was an ambassador half a day's journey from the Dark Path Alliance. The leader replied that the children of the head of the academy were there, so they should order the warriors to move twice as close to Wudong and wait for instructions. And the ambassador must be told to retreat. The spies of the Dark Alliance can kill him. You can't clear the clouds in the night sky. You have to wait for the moonlight to break through on its own. On the other bank, a scout said that he had an urgent message from the yellow-white eagle. And because the bird was injured, the message was delayed. The chief took the letter in his hands and said that he thought it was too late. The leader told Elder Gu to immediately find out the identity of this bastard. The elder immediately came up behind the guy and touched the scout's head with 2 fingers. Elder Gu said that when he said that the bird was injured, he was condemning himself. Only a spy could say that, because messages are never sent here by birds. Elder Gu did the deed and said that he had broken his jaw and sealed the important points. He would not be able to commit suicide. They would soon find out who was behind him. The leader replied that this was enough, and he had another task. A squad of iron-flying horses. Let him send them to Wudong immediately. The next day at training, one of the students shouted that he had done it. The student started crying and asked if she was really a genius. Jiren also asked the captain if he was sure that was the reason. Nam Gung replied that they managed anyway. It was because they were willing to risk their lives. But one of the students looked and said that he felt sorry for the others. They had to risk their lives, but why did they try so hard? Hung also asked Lady Pen if she was okay. The girl replied that of course she was. Since he and the White Phoenix were okay, why did he think it would be hard for her? Hung replied that more people had done it than he expected. Even a newbie could do it, but most of the Red Vermilion squad couldn't. He wasn't going to hide his powers anymore? Heron replied that he didn't know. He thought that many of their group could handle it. He shouted at Chang Hong to open his eyes because everyone had already passed out. And suddenly Rin said that she thought those people would come soon. Mrs. Pan asked her what she was talking about. After such a question, suddenly a flock of birds began to approach them. The students immediately got ready and shouted that they were coming. Heron saw that everyone was running forward, and he wanted to do the same. But suddenly someone grabbed his hand and stopped him. Heron asked him to let him go. Chang Hong told him to keep quiet. If he went there, they would both die, he and his older brother. Heron was surprised and asked, "Where did he get that from?" Sul also came up to them and asked what happened. Chang Hong replied that he thought that she, Lady Li, would immediately rush after Heron if he went into battle. Sul sighed and said that she almost said no because she was stunned by their insight. But if Heron fights, she will follow him. After all, it is her choice, and whether she lives or dies depends on her skills. Chang Hong replied that he respected her choice, but he chose to protect Heron at all costs. If he made a move, his brother would send him to sleep for 3 days, and before he rushed to attack, he should look around. Heron asked him if he thought they would just surround them and leave like that. Chang Hong replied that he definitely wouldn't. Let him look at their weapons. And it looks like the weapon of the Red Vermilion Squad, him and his brother. They want to make it look like the Red Vermilion Squad killed them. And now how does Heron think what will happen if he interferes in this battle? Moen decided to be the first to enter the battle and attacked with his galactic flow of the Sword of Existence. But after that there was an explosion, and those old men appeared. Chang Hong was surprised and thought what to do. But he shouted that it was an ambush. Heron also asked him not to move. The Shadow Blade Seal is returning, and Moen was thinking, which attack should he block first? And if he fails, he will definitely die. And then Moen decided that he would start with his attack. But Moen couldn't withstand such power, and the mercenaries simply wounded him with their swords. And he saw a white light in front of him, but he understood that he was able to block. But is this really the end? Seeing in front of him how the old man is approaching him, but suddenly Ryuan flew out of the forest and used his ball to attack the old man and save his friend. Madame Peng and Hung also charged in and immediately took out several mercenaries in front of them. Namgung also took charge and shouted to the Red Falcon team to advance and attack. Hawk suddenly said that they would sort everything out here. But Yun went to Moen and asked what they should do. Hung replied that we need to stop the bleeding as soon as possible and be on guard. It's not the end, it's still dangerous. The fat man wondered what had happened. After all, the hand that blocked the blade of the Lord of the Underworld was numb and still did not obey. But where did this young brat suddenly come from? Can immediately came running and shouted to the fat pig that no, let her not go anywhere and stay where she is. And even if that strange old man is taken over by the mentor of the flaming blade, it seems that the attacks will not stop, and so let him try to block them. Mrs. Peng told him that he was talking as if it didn't apply to him. How could he relax when a friend was injured? Ruin asked her if she had heard the saying, slow and steady wins the race. He had to deal with something else first. So let them try here. Namgung shouted to Tan Sam and Tan to examine the 7th divine sword. Sam replied that he could see that it was in bad shape. Death was at the door. Tan called him a fool and asked what he was saying. They had to save him no matter what. The old man asked at that moment, how did this happen? But the grandson of the Holy Sword did well against the only one who could cast a spell on the bloody blade, and perhaps they underestimated these children. And besides, for some reason, their guys from the Blade of the Lord of the Underworld squad are missing. Did someone really kill them quietly? The old man saw that the situation was getting more complicated, and it would be better to kill him and throw him to his older brother. Sul entered the battle and shouted to the boys that the old man was in front of them. But the old man attacked them from afar. Rin saw this and repelled the attack, saying that he would not pass. The old man said that his sword, which was wrapped in the energy of a ghost tormenting the soul, was blocked by a young girl. And what is her name? But Ruin heard this and asked why an old man who would soon be in the ground needed to know the name of a young lady. It had nothing to do with him. Ruin asked Miss Na if she would mind giving him this old man. Rin replied that it made no difference. Ruin, hearing these words, simply took off the bracelets from his hands. The old man became very angry and threatened to make him go crazy and cut out his impudent tongue with his own hands, and immediately used the demon eye technique. But Ruin stood in front of him and said that it would be better for him not to use it. The old man was surprised and did not know why he could not move. Could it be that he reflected his demon eye? Ruin didn't waste any time and used the heart and soul country's impenetrability secret skill, autumn cold and summer heat attack. The old man immediately grabbed his head and screamed that his eyes were hurting. Ruin simply waved his finger and directed the pain into his head. Suddenly, the demon's eyes suddenly broke in the old man's hands, and the old man simply fell to the ground and did not move anymore. And Fatso simply lost his arm during the attack and said that it was nonsense, and asked was he really crippled? Kan replied that it was because he shouldn't have looked back at that skeleton like that in front of him. Honorable masters should live every day like an asura, but he was just a fat pig. The fat man turned around and saw that they hadn't even reached their goal, and it turned out that they were just losers. And having decided to run away, he wanted to survive. Fatso shouted after them that he was retreating today, but he would never forgive them. Ruen replied that it was just a hackneyed farewell and said goodbye. And Kang was shouting that next time he would make a pork chop out of him. And Changhong was shouting at the idiot that they should have been captured and interrogated. Why did he just let them go? Changhong thought that instead of an inept interrogation, it would really be better to let them go and follow where they go to find out who was behind them. Ruin replied that it was because he had somewhere to go. Heron immediately asked him not to harm him. He was his own brother. Ruin told him not to worry, he was just going for a walk. But Heron's imagination changed and he heard voices asking him why he stabbed them. They were his friends. And this pain tears you apart, and why did he kill them? After all, their only crime was that they only expressed admiration for him. Heron began to swing his sword and saw monsters in front of him that made him feel worse. But a voice simply told him that it was enough and let him rise. Immediately, someone used a sword of thunder-striking sword energy. The thunderbolt was so strong that the elder felt severe pain in his body. And when he came out into the real world, Heron asked his brother if he could hear him. His brother answered that he was so noisy. The elder said that his little brother was a 13-year-old boy, and how much time he missed. Heron asked his brother not to move. Soul asked at that moment, won't he answer? Changhong said that he had already changed his pulse. It was a miracle that he had lasted until now. His 5 senses had already been destroyed, and his energy wasted. He thought about it and came to the conclusion that he felt the same pain from being struck by 1,000 swords. The elder asked Heron if he would let him leave in comfort, because he wanted to see his progress in his studies. Heron asked him what he wanted to talk about. How could he do this to him? The elder started shouting at him and telling him to wake up and ask, doesn't he know whose blood is in them? Doesn't he understand what gift from him would be best for his current self? Heron obeyed his brother's order, and drawing his swords, simply cut him into 2 pieces. Finally, the elder said that it was magnificent, and the sword's destructive energy was wonderful. Not a single piece of clothing was damaged, and let the brother just protect himself from the law of heaven. At this time, the army of warriors was heading to war. Earlier, when he was little, Heron came to the forest and saw dead animals. But even in this place, his horse was fighting for its life. Seeing him wounded, he told him not to get up, because if he moves, it will get even worse, and he will somehow take him and heal him. The elder one turned to the younger one immediately. But Heron was very upset and said that Lolo was hurt. He tied her here for a short time. Maybe they'll take him sooner. Lolo needs to be cured. The elder told him that Lolo couldn't be saved, and it would be better to leave him here. Heron was surprised and asked his brother how he could say such a thing. Was he suggesting that he kill the wounded Lolo? The elder replied that Lolo would no longer be able to stand normally. Horses that cannot stand develop bed sores and twisted intestines. But even if it weren't for the broken leg, it's impossible to cure a mad dog bite. Heron cried and shouted that number. His brother had given it to him. It had become his first friend. The elder said that was why he was saying that. This child was already suffering like hell. Was he going to leave his friend to die in such pain? Heron cried loudly and asked Lolo for forgiveness. The elder asked the younger if he could help her. Heron pulled out his swords to kill him, but he lowered his hands and said that he can't do it. It will hurt him. He feels that he will hurt him even more. The elder saw that he could not cope and decided to do it himself. And approaching, he used the destructive energy of the sword. And now this is the only way to let her go without pain, like the touch of the wind. And now the elder told the younger that the sword's wonderful destructive energy. Not a single piece of clothing was affected. Saul was very worried and asked Heron if it was really okay for him to be there. She felt like he was about to faint. Rin replied that he couldn't help but go there. The students were also angry, and Hawk asked if they were going to sit there all night until they came back. Mrs. Tang asked him, what was he suggesting? Dancing in such an atmosphere? Hak said no, but they had to get back somehow, so they should discuss what to do next. Namgung said that he had already sent a carrier pigeon to the academy and notified Wudong. So now they were waiting, at least until the senior, meaning everyone including the student Ryun, returned. Jiren also said that it was true. They went to the Wudong inner residence to wash the body, so if the decision is made, it will be there. Hung told them that since it was the corpse of a bloody blade, the matter could not be left to the elders. But since Hung was with them, it might work out. But Mrs. Ping said that the situation was too dangerous for Wudong to interfere any further. Anything wrong, and they would find themselves in the middle of a raging war. And up to this point, everything is clear. But don't they think that those brothers went with completely unsuitable people? Hunan is a student of the Wudong school, and Changhong has experience in ablution. But why didn't Mentor Flameblade go and sleep here? And why is the source of most of the problems the student Ryuan there? Entering the room, Ryuan asked his friend why he was looking at him like that. Changhong replied that it was nothing, he was just very skilled. And it's his brother, so he understands why Heron collapsed in the process. The corpse's condition is so serious that it would have been wiser to freeze it. But instead, Rowan suddenly handed him something. Changhong was surprised and asked him if he was using internal energy now. Ryuan said, of course. If there was moisture left, it would decompose faster. Changhong looked around and said that it seemed like they had washed everything. But Ryuan didn't finish there, and handed him a rag and told him to turn him over. And he would cover his arms and legs with clothes, and then turn him over again before the cadaveric spots appeared. Changhong suddenly said that such skill is impossible without a lot of experience, and asked the guy how many corpses he washed. Ryuan didn't know how to say, and answered that somewhere with the population of one village. But in the morning, an influential person received information, and smashing everything in the room asked the old man what he just said. The old man replied that the first younger gentleman had apparently died. The elder was so angry upon receiving such news that he could not resist and broke everything in front of him. The maid also brought tea to the mistress, dropped the cutlery and asked her for forgiveness, saying that she had already made such a mistake since the morning. She would quickly clean everything up and bring the tea again. The lady replied that everything was fine, and she could take her time. She was free all day anyway. I haven't received any news or business. Could anything possibly be important to her? During the process, at that moment, Chunhong looked at something and asked the guy what happened. Ryuan replied, however, it was the first time he saw something like this. And why did Uncle separate them? Chunhong replied that the body was in poor condition. The internal organs were half melted. If he had not removed the bodily fluids, sooner or later the corpse would have swollen and burst. Naturally, they would deliver all this along with the body. Ryuan asked then, is the mysterious powder he put inside necessary for preservation? Chunhong replied that yes, it is an extract from willow leeches. It prevents blood clotting and spoilage. And the cause of death will be determined later. The guy was sitting with Heron at that moment and said that he thought it was clear to all of them anyway. Chunhong replied that Heron was simply the last one to swing his sword. The true cause of death must be something else. He knew that because the final swing of the sword did not belong to someone from the Heavenly Alliance, everything could be resolved safely. Ryuan said that it was so, and Heron only eased his brother's suffering. In that state, there was no saving him. So the real culprits are those who pushed Brother Heron to come here. The disciple was saying at that time that if he was not mistaken, then at the last minute he was definitely glad about it. But Changhong believed that in order to get to the truth, they had to deliver the coffin with the body in perfect condition as quickly as possible. And now they don't know what the Dark Alliance might do and how many lives are at stake. But Snowman's group was on the lookout, and they said that this flag was from the Iron Leg Cavalry of the Dark Alliance. The guy was surprised and replied that this was the road to Mount Wudong. What should they stop them? The girl asked them, is this possible? They are the only ones who will die. We just need to report this to Wudong as soon as possible and pass it on to the Red Falcon team. But the commander replied that no, they were all moving out together, but they would be late. Fortunately, they had chosen a road that horses could travel, and he and Mu would take a shortcut. Mu also agreed and said that the situation was serious, so they had better stay here and pass on urgent news to the academy. And after coming to his senses, He asked the captain what he just said. The captain repeated once more that they would be destroyed. And then they would lose not only the entire Red Falcon team, but also the third Shining Sword, the Ice Phoenix, and the Steel Hairpin. So we need to stop them as soon as possible. Chung Hong said during the trial that they should go to the academy immediately, and we need to find out who the killer is, the best way to prevent war. And in the Alliance of Darkness, there will definitely be those who want to know the truth. Rune became curious about how his uncle decided to act and asked, for example, who? That same evening, a bird unexpectedly flew to the lady and brought her a letter that was hooked on her leg. The lady read the letter and in surprise immediately went down from the second floor of the house. But without looking at her feet, she walked straight down onto the broken dishes that the servant had dropped. The servant saw this and was frightened and asked the mistress, "How is it possible? Let her wait a little. She will bring her medicine." The lady said that she must go now and asked where her morning clothes were. In the morning, Can also told everyone that it was time to hit the road and that they had half an hour to get ready, and then they were heading to the academy. The girl asked why so suddenly. The captain also said that there was a student, Ryuan, and the others who had gone to wash themselves had not returned yet. Kang replied that they would come from there, so it was time to pack their luggage. Mrs. Peng asked if there were any instructions from Wudang or the academy. It was unwise to do so in the current situation. Hung also said that if the body of the Bloody Blade and the disciple of Moen Hui could be left to the elders, and they received reinforcements, it would be possible. But for now, it is dangerous to move forward. Can replied that there would be no reinforcements. The dead and wounded would go with them. Everything had already been agreed upon with Hudan. The students were surprised and asked, "What?" Ms. Tang asked, "When did they manage to go to Wudang if they had slept soundly all night?" Hak also said that everything is so, and it is a lie. It is simply impossible to transport a coffin and a wounded person with their composition. Can got angry and said that he thought they wanted to tell him something. Then let them do it in such a way that he would understand. Let them attack. A little earlier, Ruin had told him that since they had finished their discussion, he should get ready to move out. And half an hour would be enough? Can started yelling at them and saying that they were hiding rats and he would fry them first. But suddenly someone came running from behind and told them to stop. The guy said his name was Cheon Myung, the leader of the Blue Dragons team. And they came with Baek Muyon to report urgent news. Peng was surprised and asked, "What urgent news?" Men replied that on the director's orders, a team of Blue Dragons and a Black Turtle arrived to help. But on the way, they saw the Iron Leg Cavalry. Mus said they were moving along a path that horses could travel, but thanks to his knowledge of the area, they took a shortcut and got here first. They'd be here soon, in about an hour. Meng turned to the Flame Blade mentor and said that there were quite a few of them. For safety's sake, he needed to move to the Wudang school area as soon as possible and ask for their protection. Can replied no. They were leaving here in half an hour. Men said they would then encounter the iron-legged cavalry. Mu also said that if they all moved together, no matter how dense the forest was, they would still eventually be noticed and destroyed. Ms. Peng told the master that they should take refuge in Wuding School and report what had happened. The Iron Leg Cavalry was too much for them to handle right now. Hung replied that the Iron Leg Cavalry had incredible strength. They were a group of excellent masters who wielded the Qinggong spear, which could strike targets at great distances. Can said that we shouldn't show off, but take action. The girl told the mentor that Sejo had gone completely nuts. Does he want them all to die? Jiren asked if they should try to dissuade him too. The captain replied that there was only one person who could dissuade the mentor. Suddenly Ruin asked, "What measures?" The captain calmed down because he saw that he had come. Ruin came and said, "Why don't they prepare for departure, but waste time thinking up measures? Since this is an Iron Leg Cavalry, then the road is now impossible to pass." Heron said they couldn't get through. The Iron-Legged Cavalry are the elite of the elite. No one has been able to defeat them yet, so it would be better for them to take refuge in Udan's territory, and he and his brother will stay here and greet them. Mu asked him, "What is he talking about?" "With which brother?" "That is, the body in the coffin is his brother." Sol could not stand it and ran to him. But Chung Hong couldn't stand it and immediately struck him on the back and said that he fell again. Sol caught him and asked how he was. Chung Hong replied that he was so weak he kept fainting constantly since yesterday. Ruin said that uncle was right. Heron was weak and needed to sleep. And since everything had been decided with him, there shouldn't be any more problems. Let them prepare for departure. Pan asked, shouldn't it? The Iron Leg cavalry is still a problem. People's lives are at stake. Let him listen to them. Rin also replied that, as Miss Pan said, people's lives were at stake. So Master and Apprentice Ruin probably had a reason to hurry them up. Before becoming a student of the Celestial Warrior Academy, she was the heir to the leader of the Celestial Alliance and swore to protect the righteous path until the very end. And if they have a good reason to risk their lives, let them tell her first. Rywan said that he thought so. Ms. Na is the only one who believes that there is a deeper meaning to his decision. And without details, but Miss Na is right, there is a reason. Within 2 weeks, or better yet, 10 days, they must deliver the body to the academy safe and sound. Chung Hong said that in order to avoid any trouble for them or the Wudong school, the body must be delivered as quickly as possible and in perfect condition. The disciple also held it and answered that it was true. The disciple Chung Hong treated the body so that it would remain incorruptible for the next 15 days. The academy will have a special morgue where the corpse can be embalmed and dissected. Hiding behind Udan and receiving their protection would only increase the suspicions of the Dark Alliance, and they must move as soon as possible to prevent war. Namgung said that they were then the Red Falcon team, ready to fight and die. Mu asked, how did it all turn out like this? But in any case, before leaving, he would try to come up with a plan. They couldn't just go out and stand in front of the Iron Leg cavalry. Ruin asked why not. Mu replied that if they went against the Iron Cavalry, they would die. And no matter how reckless he is, he must have at least a drop of common sense. Ruin said that today he would teach them a new common sense. Let them quickly prepare for departure. Kan also said that he had said everything. So stop talking a little and get ready quickly. Mrs. Peng said no, and where did Ruin run off to? Namgung replied that he thought it would be better for their mental health not to look into his actions and start packing. Yun suddenly said that he didn't know if it was appropriate to talk about this now, but he was very concerned about it, so he would ask, why are there 2 coffins and not 1? The student replied that one of them was empty. Student Ruin said to take another one for the man. Suddenly, Ruin moved forward and met the Iron-Legged cavalry, but the head said that in the end, they would have to go all the way. They had to move forward. The fewer people, the better. There should be no more than 10 people in the group. The warrior replied that the order had been accepted. However, their opponent was Iron-Legged cavalry, and besides, there would be a mistress there. And he was afraid that with so many people, it would be impossible. The leader said no, they didn't need to face the Iron-Legged cavalry unless they wanted to start a war. But in any case, they are already late. But the leader of the Shadowless Squad is there, and they will believe that the Academy of Heavenly Warriors and the Wuding School will protect the children. At that moment, the old man, hiding behind a tree, asked his senior classmate how they dared to set foot on the lands of Wudong. The fellow student supported him and said that it was just a spectacle. The old man asked him if he was really just going to watch. Maybe a fellow disciple could unblock his acupuncture points before that young disciple died. The fellow disciple told him that if he wanted him to knock him out, just let him watch quietly. The old man answered him that he was just bragging that his disciples could fight back. Let him quickly unblock it. But the fellow disciple came up from behind and hit him on the back. The fellow student knew that since this guy said so, he should just watch. And it turned out that Ryan had truly never seen anything like this. The squad leader stopped the horses and asked Ruin who he was. Ruin asked if they wanted him to introduce himself. Well, of course it's natural that they want to hear the name of the future celebrity. The commander laughed and replied that the boy was not only impudent, but also crazy, and decided that I just had to ignore him and trample him. That's what they usually do. So why did they stop now? The commander said that before he was punished, he should identify himself. Ruin did not hide and gave his name. The commander said that this was the first time he had heard that name. And what was his nickname, he asked? Ruin was surprised and replied that he had no such thing. The commander told the boy not to make them laugh. And how dare the rascal without a nickname block the path of the Iron-Legged cavalry? Ruin asked him in return, what should they do? Do they have to have something like that to stand in front of them? But he hasn't done anything to earn recognition and a nickname yet. But don't worry, that won't stop him from warning them to come home. The captain got angry and suddenly someone addressed him, calling him Mu-san. San immediately shut up and closed his mouth. The main man immediately came out and told San to stop holding them up. San replied that the order had been accepted. He would deal with it immediately. San immediately ordered Chogol and Chuguan. Rune said that he politely warned them to keep things quiet and calm, but it seemed that the negotiations had failed. Rune kicked the ground and took off his bracelets, saying that now he too would have to act seriously. And he hadn't felt so good for a long time. And he shouted to the enemies to start approaching. San gave the order to his men to attack the guy. The warriors, hearing this order, pointed their spears at him and began to gallop and attack. But Rune was stronger than them this time, and with a movement of his hands, he lifted them into the air and turned them over. San said it was impossible. How did this happen? Although these two are young, they have useful fighting techniques. In addition, they have undergone repeated training. So why is this? Is this a trap? San started asking the guy what kind of tricks were these. How dare he block the road by setting up traps? Ruin was surprised and replied that he didn't have such stupid hobbies. The fellow students saw that the enemy's feet were definitely caught on something, but even he couldn't see it. But he had heard that an iron-legged cavalry at full gallop could demolish a house. How did he do it? It was amazing. San didn't stop there, and decided that the 4 horsemen of their iron cavalry would crush him. He immediately ordered the Storm 4 to trample him, but beware of traps. The Storm 4 heard the order and went to attack. Ruin looked at them and said that it would not be easy, and decided to use the string of the heart and soul, absolute protection, purity of mind and heart. And the Storm 4 used the chain of 4 horsemen, a spear with interchangeable links, and they used the whirlwind of the iron chain. Ruin simply stepped back a little after seeing the attack and used the thunder-slashing sword, a sword energy that cuts the palm. And the Storm 4 used a blow against him that cut the earth and sky in half. After such a strong blow, Moan came to his senses in the coffin and slowly opened his eyes and thought, "Where is he?" And his body seemed to be falling apart. But he felt like he was moving, and something was holding him up in the air. And what were those disgusting cut-out holes? But he remembered Chang Hong saying that the iron-legged cavalry was not only made up of martial artists. Horses encased in iron armor were trained to be deadly weapons. Moen immediately realized that it was the voice of Chang Hong's disciple. But what was he talking about? But suddenly he heard the voice again, telling them to be more careful from now on. He thought he saw them over there. Moen guessed right away that it was the voice of the Red Falcon team leader, but he couldn't understand what was happening. And after he fell, he didn't remember anything at all. Moen began to feel that everything was shaking, and suddenly he realized that they had stopped. Then he began to scream for them to open the door for him. Suddenly the door opened, and El told Moen that he had already woken up. But he said that this was a bad place. But if he didn't want the wounds to open, it was better for him to lie here. Moen said no, he wanted to know what was going on. Let him help him up. El helped him and told him not to be surprised by what he saw. Moen looked at the students and wondered what they were looking at. He turned his head and saw Ruin fighting the iron-legged cavalry and easily finished off 4 of them. Kan asked his disciples if they had seen him. As he had said, let them stop worrying about him. But Miss Peng said that nevertheless, disciple Ruin should not fight them alone. Isn't that right, Miss Na? Rin knew it was because they were worried too. She couldn't see the half of it. San was also shocked and couldn't believe it. First Cho Gol and Chu Guan, and now the Storm 4. He didn't even see what happened. And where did such a monster come from? And how many more must come out against him? They can't all attack a guy who doesn't even have a nickname. Rin realized that they wouldn't trample him to death altogether. She said that they should wait and watch. Mrs. Peng was surprised and asked her why. After all, she had just said something completely different. Before her opinion changed, Rin said that she had collected the most important things, so now she would go look for Ryuan's student. Kan stopped her and said that it was not necessary, especially alone. He understood that if someone else wanted to, he would not be able to hold her back. Suddenly, the other students also said that they would go. The boys also answered that they had no luggage, so they could leave right now. Hyun also said that he was with them, and if the 4 of them went, the risk would be much lower. Kan laughed and replied that they were all the same. Selfish punks. Do they even see that? Seeing the holes in the coffin, Mrs. Peng said she didn't even want to know. The guy replied that it was the lid of the coffin. He just didn't understand what those holes were for. Kan said that these were breathing holes so that he could survive by receiving the devil's blessing, and he shouted at them to close them. During the trial, Namgung said that it was something like the face of the devil. then it is not a blessing, but a curse. Can asked them if they could see. They had two coffins that couldn't be shaken, so they would have to be carried by 8 people. Plus, there was more luggage. Yun told Seol that she was carrying both his and Heron's luggage. Could she really handle it? Seol replied that he would have to carry Mr. Heron on his back, so she should take the luggage. But what if he woke up in the middle of the road? Chung Hong replied that he would block the acupuncture points to keep the noise down. After all, they were short of workers anyway. Suddenly, Sam started yelling at his sister to stop putting things on. She wants them to carry all these things? It's better to just drag the coffin and not show off. Lady Tang told him to shut up. The Tang clan chief can't carry the coffin, and she won't leave everything to him. Hack looked at them at that moment and said that the world is so rotten that even the poor are forced to work. Kan said that people who have less things will act as guards and cover the rear. Moon told his mentor that the enemies were in front. There was no need to cover the rear. Meanwhile, Ryun's student could die. Is that okay? Kan replied that everything was fine as long as they did what they were told. What he meant was that there was no need to worry about things that hadn't happened yet. Rin then started to say that it didn't seem like Ryun's apprentice's life was in danger right now. Master Flameblade had set the right priorities. Mrs. Peng replied that this couldn't be. The scene they just saw was amazing, but there were several times more enemies there. Moon said that on the contrary, it might even be safer. Hung said yes. The Iron Leg cavalry wouldn't attack a single student as a crowd. The Blue Commander said that on the other hand, if they all moved out now, they could attack too. Rin replied that yes, that was true. But in her head, she knew that she still couldn't read his heart. Kan looked and said that he had already told them earlier. Let them watch the luggage. After all, Ryun is just a little devil who usually does not have a trace of blood, sweat, or tears. But where did this particularly bad feeling come from today? Chung Hong also thought, what kind of guy is he? He usually just lazes around, but when he does something, it's pretty cruel. No, not at all cold-blooded. It was as if all his emotions had been erased. And was this really his true form? Sun couldn't believe it because he had destroyed the Storm 4 and the iron-legged horses in one fell swoop. And he doesn't even have a sword. How could he do this? He absolutely must be killed. He'll just trample on me. Then he won't be able to do anything. San began to ask what he would do when 12 people with an iron fist directed 12 blows at him with the help of the art of encirclement and destruction. San attacked him himself and used 12 blows with an iron hand. And they aimed the crosshairs of spears at him. Ruin looked at it and saw that it was continuous fire. But in response, he used his thunder-striking sword secret technique of movements. Phoenix Dance, secret meaning. Ruin started to dodge all the attacks. Khan and his team also got hit, and he thought, why did he come here? Mrs. Peng was afraid for Ryun's student and started looking for him. Ryun looked at them and asked what the two of them were doing here. After all, he generally thought that they would watch and pretend that they didn't know anything about it. Mrs. Peng started shouting that this was absurd. They were afraid that this would escalate the situation, but no one was thinking of just watching like a coward. San saw them and asked, who are these bastards? And he couldn't believe that the guy dodged the continuous fire of 12 blows with an iron fist. But once his gang has intervened, he can, without a twinge of conscience, fully utilize the art of encirclement and destruction. San started shouting that he would send them to hell together so that they wouldn't be lonely on the way. 12 blows with an iron hand. San raised his spear and told them to prepare to attack. Suddenly, the chief told San to stop and ordered him to look here. The chief said that the situation had changed. San was surprised and asked what had happened. The chief replied that it seemed to him that their target had appeared, but he understood that it was too late. But he sees that there are 2 coffins, and why is that? And it seems to him that someone has come to explain the situation. Chung Hong greeted them and said that he was a first-year student of the Heavenly Warrior Academy and asked, how about listening to their proposal? And now they are going to deliver evidence of this incident to the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, and they can go with them to watch and protect. And now they are invited to the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. Earlier, before leaving, Chung Hong asked Yun if they could talk in private. Yun was surprised and replied that of course. He stepped aside and listened to Chung Hong and asked, is this really okay? Chung Hong replied that it was not only normal, it was supposed to be that way. Now they would go over the signals again to make sure he remembered everything correctly. Yun said that this is the plan of the authoritative sister. As soon as the signal is given, he and Heron on his back cling to Miss Na's clothes, begging for protection. The next shot is a quick cut. As soon as the signal is given, he hides behind Ryan with Heron on his back. Next comes the plan to make him look like a corpse. As soon as the signal is given, he puts Heron in Moang Hui's coffin, making him look like a dead man. In an emergency, Hyun Woong, who is guarding the coffin, will help. Chung Hong replied that due to the circumstances, it will be difficult to explain everything in detail. Let him just know that many lives depend on him. He believes him, right? Yun said yes, but he would be very ashamed to hide behind Ryun, and would Miss Na listen to him? And Vis was badly wounded, and if they put Heron with him. Chung Hong replied that Ryun was a fool. He wouldn't even notice if someone was hiding behind him. There was nothing to be ashamed of. And Hui himself was like a log, so everything would be fine. As for Miss Na, she would have no choice but to listen to him. And does he know where the plan's authoritative sister got its legs from? Yun replied that he didn't. He only generally understood the meaning of the combination's quick transition and pass off as a corpse. But what does Miss Na have to do with the plans, and with some little sister? Chung Hong replied that the Ice Phoenix and Cal Heron never addressed each other like that, but in fact they are brother and sister. The two are related on their mother's side, and thanks to this incident, she realized that Heron was Cal Heron, her cousin, although she probably knew about it earlier. And just before the proposal was voiced, San used 12 blows with an iron hand. Chung Hong saw this and shouted to Yunu to use the plan, authoritative sister. Suddenly, Yun grabbed Rin by her clothes and asked her to wait a minute. He asked her if she could stay close to them to protect them. And not him, but Harina. He was told that she would help him, and he would definitely repay for this service. Yun didn't understand what he was saying, but he had a feeling that if he blurted out that they were cousins, there would be trouble. And why did Chang make him do that? Rin replied that it was fine and she would help him. Yun thanked her and couldn't believe that she had actually succeeded. Sol, seeing this, immediately wondered, why Rin? And Moen at that moment tried to get out of the coffin, but the disciple did not let him do it. The student told him to be quiet, because if he continued to do so, he would leave his protection to the elder, that is, to the student Ryun. Sol saw that if she went with them, the luggage would not be a problem. She also wanted to protect Mr. Heron. Currently, Chung Hong said that they are now going to deliver the evidence of this incident to the Celestial Warrior Academy. And now he asks them to go with them, to watch and protect. They invite them to the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. San asked him if he wanted to die too. Is the Academy of Heavenly Warriors a bunch of lunatics? The captain asked the boy if he had the right to invite them on behalf of the Celestial Warrior Academy, and it seemed like he just said he was only a freshman. San was unhappy with this and turned to the captain. Chung Hong replied that he came forward because he had a clear voice, but they all had the same opinion on this matter. And if they don't believe, they can see for themselves. He decided that everything is going well, and now it is necessary to introduce them depending on the forces. And the first one who can think faster and control these psychos, Chun Hong asked Rin if she agreed with him. Rin immediately realized that the alliance had sent him. Then she agreed with his words and invited them. San was surprised to hear about the Ice Phoenix, and the captain understood that this was the precious only daughter of the head of the Heavenly Alliance. Then the one she protects is Cal Heron. Chung Hong thought about what to say after the Ice Phoenix. He asked loudly for the others to confirm it too. He saw Miss Na agree, so he quickly agreed too. And since he is close to the mentor, he needs to be convinced too. Ruin said that he would allow them to accompany them. Chung Hong got angry and mentally wanted to sew his mouth shut, but this was already a success. Kang thought about it and replied that he also gave his permission. But Mrs. Peng understood the same thing, that now was not the time to provoke enemies. And she said that the two were a bit tired, so they spoke out harshly, but she assures that they, like her, the steel heel Peng Ha Ren, do not want bloodshed. The captain, hearing the name, realized that the daughters of the head of the Heavenly Alliance and the director of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors were here. San got really angry and started yelling at them to stop talking nonsense. They killed 6 people and now they're talking about an escort, and they're even giving permission out of respect. Can suddenly asked what he had just said. Actually, they had all died because of him. He shouldn't have gotten so stubborn when he saw that mug. Ruin also confirmed and said that he was just standing in the middle of the road and even kindly warned them. San asked, why did this happen then? After this, they expect that no one will touch them? Ruin asked him, will he send the hangers on again, shaking behind his back like a human shield? Let him stop hiding behind these poor kids and come out in one go. He'll make a roast out of him. And it's not for nothing that they called him the burning dog meat. He's completely nuts. Does he think that someone here can dare to go out? The commander told Sun that the flame blade is one of the 5 blades whose flames cover the heavens, soul, and sword. Everything will be fine, right? San replied that this psycho would definitely be punished. Let the commander rely on him. Just before the first strike, Khan simply held out his sword and blocked San's attack. Khan said that it was good, and so it should be. But San did not stop and immediately made the first swing of the spear. After Khan blocked, Sun said that the frontal strikes of the 3 stages of the storm strike were repelled. Yes, he really is the flame blade from the rumors, but too far from his huge spear. Khan got tired of just taking the blows and using his speed. He simply pounced on him with both feet. But at that moment, he began to hear Ryuan's voice saying that he was teaching him everything and teaching him this from the first meeting, but he still didn't remember. When he tries to do something, it's like he sticks to the ground. And he can't fight without his deer. How much longer is he going to stand on the ground and bat his eyelashes while the others fly? Kan suddenly started yelling at him and calling him names, and asked him what he thought, that someone lives here stuck to the ground? Ryuan, seeing this now, was a little surprised that his student was able to do what he taught him. Kan became even more persistent and dealt a large number of blows. But suddenly the captain intervened and repelled him with his spear. The captain apologized for butting in, but finding another one like him would be difficult. In exchange for saving him, he promised no more attacks. He understood that in any case, it was more important to understand the situation now than to rush into battle indiscriminately. Sun accepted his defeat and turned to the captain, and Kang came down and said that he had no strength at all. Changhong asked them if they accepted their invitation. San replied that they had suffered losses. Ryuan said that since even the deputy had lost to their mentor, naturally they should stop. But you also have to pay a fine for breaking the rules by getting stuck in a fight. Khan shouted that everything was right. He agreed with everything that was said. The captain replied that it was a fine. And how much, Ryuan asked him, how much cash did they have right now? At this moment, the old man went with the lady from the other side of the forest. The old man asked Ran if she really didn't need to rest. It was a long way to the Celestial Warrior Academy. Ran said no. She wanted to get there as soon as possible, and there was no way she could delay. But suddenly she remembered her last visit, and upon arriving at the Alliance, she fell to her knees and said that she welcomed the head of the Alliance. The chief told Ran to get up right away. She came in mourning clothes. He couldn't even see her face. Ran told the chief that she was engaged to him, so it was only natural. The chief replied that she was better than him. He was his father, but he couldn't even afford to grieve because his son was the criminal of that night, whom he personally sent, despite the fact that he was his own flesh and blood. Ran told him that he was the leader of the Dark Alliance, the Blade of Darkness. He would understand. She should blame herself because she couldn't do anything for him. The chief replied that no, and there is something she can do. It will be dangerous and painful for her. But could he ask for a favor? Ran realized that in order to identify the real killer, she had to observe the autopsy and not return until she received further instructions. The servant at this moment said that judging by the fact that he sent the iron-legged cavalry and Saul ran, the Blade of Darkness suspected something. Bloody Blade is killed, but the intervention of the twin killers of heaven and earth is revealed, although these two are already hidden, and he is very ashamed. The second general of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, the shadow brain of evil, Chisahan asked, "What about the other characters, especially Renushka?" The servant replied that everyone was still alive. The Khan said that he had given him the power to control the twin killers of heaven and earth, and this was the result. He must be very sad. The servant simply started hitting his head on the ground and begging for forgiveness, and asked to let him die. The Khan simply pulled a stone out of the water and threw it straight at him. But he hit the statue, which immediately broke, and the servant was surprised. The Khan told him that if he wanted it that way, the servant replied that he was now asking for mercy from the great prince. If he gave him another chance, he would definitely destroy everyone. Khan told him to just keep in mind that he didn't have much time left, because he would be watching everything. But the iron-legged cavalry is the strongest of the symbols of the Dark Alliance, a squad that no one can stop. Over the past few decades, wherever they went, they left behind complete destruction. And that's exactly how it was. But now they walk on the ground on their own 2 feet. Now they are no longer iron-legged cavalry, but iron-legged infantry. Sand took command and started shouting in the past to carry out the slaughter of fresh fish with minimal loss of net weight. While cooking, Ryan asked them if they knew that salty food was bad for the cardiovascular system. And Chung Hong was in charge of the coffins and said that if moisture got into them, then everything would be lost. It was time to move. The blue student thought, is no one afraid of the consequences? He won't tell anyone anything, so maybe they'll explain why they all take this situation for granted. The blue student thought all this time and watched everyone. But he understood that they did not understand this yet, but later they would see worse things. And on the way they came across bandits and he robbed them. Sul was very scared at that moment and had to see it all. The boy knew that Rune was not in his right mind, but that he had the mind of a scoundrel. Suddenly Khan began to knock and asked what he was doing there. And didn't he say that this cart, bought with the sweat, tears, and blood of the iron-legged cavalry, cannot be touched? The guy said the door was open, so he just decided to ask a couple of questions. Khan shouted to someone that if he ever came near the carriage with the girls and the unconscious boy again, he would fold him into origami, just like his favorite fan. The captain of the Blues told the boy to do as his mentor said. The less you know, the better you sleep. If he starts digging here, he might get hooked himself. Moan had already asked from the coffin how long he would have to stay here. Maybe they would let him out? The guy answered that no, the carriage was shaking a lot, so it was safer for him to stay in the coffin. And if he tried to escape, he would call Rywan's disciple. Ms. Tan said no matter what that crazy guy does, just let him not interfere and leave him alone. Honestly, they are fine with everything, and they don't understand what the problem is. San said it was true. They would have had to drag the coffins on their backs the whole time, so they should be grateful that the iron-legged cavalry guys found and are pulling the cart. The student also said that everything was correct. They avoided such difficulties, and besides, they can also watch the spearmasters on the road. The student replied that no, it was that scoundrel who had tarnished the name of the Heavenly Alliance. Why is everything on him? Ren also said that she agreed the student Ryan was a real scoundrel. But if it weren't for this scoundrel, I don't even know what would have happened to them now. Did he come to help them or criticize them? The student asked. Isn't this too much? If they had gone a little further, other students would have come to the rescue. Ren asked, where is this scoundrel and troublemaker? The sky is strange. Jiren said that Rune's disciple had another argument with the deputy captain of the Iron-Leg Cavalry. The captain and disciple Chung Hong went with them as judges, and it seems like it's going to rain soon. San and Ryan were competing, and San was shouting that the guy was a bully and asking what he would say to that. Let him see this horsemanship. Rune didn't say anything and simply stood on his hands while eating on his horse and showed off his skills. Chung Hong suddenly spoke up and said that now that no one could hear them, the captain could speak. He would never have called him here to actually judge these two. But what did he want to say? The captain told the boy that he was quick on the uptake, and it seemed that he was their real leader. But who was he anyway? Chung Hong replied that he had already said that he was only a first-year student. He had matured prematurely because he had eaten the wrong medicine when he was a child. Chung Hong took hold of the spear and told him that if he didn't want to reveal his identity, then fine. They would do it another way. That metal stinking box that he wouldn't let go of for a second. But what is in it? Chung Hong replied that it couldn't be. What smell from his luggage was he talking about? The captain looked at him strangely and replied that it was blood. He could smell human blood. Chung Hong saw that the captain had pounced on him and asked what the point of this lie was. Although his nose was stuffy and he couldn't smell anything, even he could smell it. The captain told him the boy ducked, and he knew he wasn't a normal boy. If he wasn't lying, maybe they'd open the box and find out. Chung Hong asked him not to press him. What if something happened to the metal box? The captain answered the boy. Does he mean that he will get into trouble then? Chung Hong answered that yes. Isn't there such a thing as an explanation, a pay cut, or prison in the Dark Alliance? Maybe he would think about the main reason why the Iron Leg Cavalry was accompanying them to the academy. The captain asked, what was that reason? Chung Hong replied that the situation was explained, observation and protection of evidence. The captain asked him what he was saying, that there was evidence in the box? Chung Hong told him that he said he smelled blood. So he noticed something else? Of course, he put a bunch of things in the box, but the smell couldn't come from him. The captain thought that there was no smell in reality, but his actions seemed to be saturated with the scent of blood. And given the timing of their arrival, it would be difficult to prevent a disaster involving the brothers who inherited the blood of darkness. And when they arrived at the scene, there was another fake coffin there as a distraction. En lifted Moen up and told him to open his mouth because a plane with medicine was flying towards him. Moen told him that he could drink it himself. The captain told them that they were asking them to transport the coffin, but they said that identifying the body would be difficult. Chung Hong replied that he was asking for forgiveness. But if the coffin were opened in such a place, the integrity would be broken, and this would accelerate the decomposition of the body. Ruin also said that any extra shaking would be dangerous for it. And now the captain understood that they had essentially been unable to check its contents. The captain approached the others too and asked, "Is this guy wounded? And why hasn't he come to his senses yet?" And as for the remaining heir of the Dark Alliance, Rin told him that if he wakes up now, something that no one wants might happen. Let them give him time, and it is impossible for him to talk to him. But in the meantime, one oddity was discovered. San told the captain that a strange answer had been received from the subordinate responsible for transporting the coffin. A strange sound was coming from the coffin. And today in the afternoon, when the carriage was shaking a little, a rustling sound came from inside, like sand pouring. In fact, not only the sound, but also the sensations of transporting a coffin are very strange. And it looks more like a box of earth than a coffin. And it smells a little bit of resin. The captain thought about it and said that there was probably some coal added. It's embalming. San said the others said it was to prevent the body from decomposing. So they took care of everything? The captain knew that a body would not normally be treated like this. Sand would make the coffin heavier, and if it were to cover a body that did not have many wounds, they could be distorted. The captain said he understood everything, and to transport the coffin with special care. He understood that in the end the body was inside. It had no blood or internal organs. But why did they do it? And it is unlikely that having taken such good care of the body, they would have thrown away its parts. But where? The captain said that no matter how much he looked, he never parted with it for a moment. In this strange box without windows or doors, there was definitely a part of a man. Chung Hong told him that he was perceptive and had a good instinct. The box looked so smooth because the part that opened was facing his back. The captain told the boy that he had finally admitted it. But for what reason did they desecrate the body of the Dark Alliance leader's relative? Chung Hong replied that they did not desecrate it, but kept it for a joint investigation. Because inside is the key to solving the mystery of the real killer. Suddenly, the security from the Alliance shouted that there were people there. The lady came out and told them not to make noise. They were expecting them. Ran looked and said that they really had arrived and she would send a signal right away. The lady thought that if she had known that everything would turn out like this, she would have insisted on training and gone with her sister. And why did everything turn out like this? And now is not even the era of disasters, but there are so many people of the Blade of Darkness here that this sight gives goosebumps. The elders said that this was the first time in decades that a bloody wind had blown. And even the people he sent out just in case all died, passing on the sad news to him. The relic of the era of disasters, the pen of heaven's law, has awakened again. The director replied that it was believed that 30 years ago, as a result of the joint tactics of the heaven and evil factions, all those who had secretly infiltrated both alliances were exterminated. But it seemed that there were those who were still hiding. And if they act as the pen of heaven's law in the age of disaster, and if everything goes according to their plan, it will be difficult to find out who the real perpetrator is. What did the twins of the killer of heaven and earth look like? Can replied that it seemed like they were following the instructions. They were originally villains, so why not call them heavenly feathers and pluck them like chickens? The director said that it was a wise answer to a stupid question. The Heaven Alliance and the Heavenly Demon Pavilion would conduct their own investigation, but he would pass on his remark to them. Just like the last words of the eldest son of the leader of the Dark Alliance, Snowman told the director that, as he said, in order to deal with the law of heaven, they would have to cooperate with the Dark Alliance. But shouldn't we first resolve the issue with the iron-legged cavalry that has set up camp right outside the walls of the academy? They can't really let Captain Cheon-hak in here under the pretext of an investigation. Kan told him to keep quiet since he wasn't aware of the situation. What else could he do if he was assigned to the body? If they kick him out or say they'll handle it themselves secretly, will Master Quan take responsibility? Snowman asked, is the problem just that Hawk stuck to the body? And he understands that they traveled together for 10 days. Probably during this time they opened their hearts to the person from the Alliance of Darkness, Mentor Quan Yun-hee. Kan got very angry and asked him what he was talking about. The director got angry and told them both to shut up, and he understands their fears. Chun-hak is skilled in secret intrigues and plans and hides his true feelings well. No wonder he is called the Snake of the Iron-Legged Cavalry. However, when the Dark Alliance 3 investigator arrives, they will all leave quietly. The elder told the director that he already has an idea of who it will be. Have they received information regarding the investigator's identity? The director replied that yes. This is the closest person to the deceased, after his parents and brothers. Bride Bloody Blade, Cal Hai Bum, Flower of Evil, Yun Sol. Ran the elder asked, is it really about opening the groom's body and she will come in person? The snowman replied that yes, after all, she enjoyed the trust of both the leader of the Dark Alliance and the captain of the Iron-Leg Cavalry. The director replied that it was worth preparing in advance, and asked the mentor Quan, how is the condition of the disciple Moen Hui? Rune was in his room at that moment and Moen had already stood up. The guy said that someone left and someone came, and he thinks this is a small gift from the Dark Mother of the Chill Chul community. It will be hard for him to clean the bed for now. Maybe bring him the coffin again? Moen replied that he refused, and suddenly Chang Hong came in and asked Hui, can he move already? But the director's already looking for him. At this time, Ran came to the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, and she was very upset about what happened. Moen came to the director and asked him, what about security? The director answered yes, and he understands that it can be difficult because he returned less than a day ago, and he is also wounded. But I have already heard that he was able to rest a little on the road, and I would like to give him more time to rest, but given the status of the security facility and the current situation. In the eyes of the Dark Alliance among the male disciples, he is the only one who can be trusted. After all, he is the descendant of the Holy Sword who stays away from women. Moen asked if he understood that the object of protection was a woman. The director replied that she was the bride of the Bloody Blade, Kal Haban. But he has nothing to worry about. She will not pay attention to him while the examination of her fiancé's body continues. Moen replied that he understood everything. The director said that in front of him was a pill for healing wounds. He would take it 2 hours after eating, and tomorrow he would feel much better. Of course, it's urgent. He can eat it right now. Moen replied that he understood everything, and then he asked for forgiveness. The director laughed and asked, what's the point of apologizing? Let him do as he pleases. Moen pulled out his gloves from his pocket and decided to examine the pill. The director said that there would be no dangerous situation during this mission, but it would be difficult for the two of them in many ways. Since Yun Sail Ran is a woman, part of the protection duties will have to be taken on by him, Nayarin. Rin said that if there is something that needs attention, let him say so in advance. The director replied that he had originally thought of appointing Heron as Miss Yun's escort, but the Alliance asked to put her in this place, with the words that this was an order from the head of the Heavenly Alliance. Rin thought that this was definitely her father's order. The director said that it seemed like there would be special instructions. The leader of the Guardian Squad, the Lightning Sword Nam Gun Jin, was arriving today, although she herself probably heard it. And the head of the squad will personally oversee the investigation from their side. The Academy, for its part, will provide maximum support. So if you need anything, let him speak at any time. Rin thanked the director for such support, and she realized that her father did not want her to be discovered. So there must be a good reason why he appointed her as her escort instead of Miss Pan. She immediately used her dragon eye, and it seems to her that this mission will not be limited to just escorting. The director said that if you think about it, due to the issues regarding the protection of the young lady, they would both be provided with temporary housing for the duration of the mission. It might be uncomfortable in an unfamiliar environment, especially for him. Moen Hui, everything will be okay, right? Moen immediately remembered his recent situation and answered the director that everything was fine. The director heard them and asked them both to take care of it. The boys replied that everything would be done. At this time, Ruin came into the room and Chang Hong asked him why he came here again. Ruin replied that the stupid misophobe was currently practicing breathing exercises, so there was no room to breathe in the room. And Heron was still sleeping? Chung Hong said yes, so don't make noise and let him go to Junho's room. Ruyon said it was a bit messy, so he didn't like it, and they better play dice before Haryong woke up. Let him get some snacks. Chung Hong was surprised and said that it was better to play for money, but he was not going to play anything with him. At this time, Heron was still awake and just lay there with his eyes open. But Chun Hong still didn't shut up and shouted at the guy not to sit there and to go back to his place. Run suddenly looked up and told his uncle that he had woken the boy up with his chatter. Heron slowly got out of bed and Chang Hong gave him some water. The guy said that it was very strange that he fell asleep in his room. Heron laughed and asked why he was the only one who fell asleep here. Apparently that was why he had such a long dream that he couldn't remember it all. Ruin asked in surprise, "A dream?" Heron answered that it was true, and it was a terrifyingly realistic nightmare. Heron looked around the room and asked Brother Chang Hong why he and Ryan had such expressions. It was definitely a dream. Ruin suddenly told him to come to his senses already. Heron suddenly flipped through everything in his head and realized everything. Suddenly after that, Ruin went out for a walk, and Soul caught him and asked if Mr. Heron was okay. Ruin said no and said he had idiot disease, which greatly reduced his mental abilities, so he would go buy medicine. Soul was surprised and asked, "Medicine?" At that moment, Chung Hung was telling the guy that tomorrow they would finish the preparations so that everything could be arranged the day after tomorrow, and Heron had to decide whether to attend. And the investigator from the Alliance of Darkness will be the deceased bride, the flower of evil, Yun Sol Ran. She should have arrived by now. Suddenly on the way, the elder asked Ran, "Is there any problem?" The lady answered that no, it's time to go. She knew that in that direction was only the main entrance to the academy. And where was he going at such a time? Chung Hong said that the investigator from the Light Alliance side is the head of the guard squad that is under the personal control of the leader of the alliance, Lightning Sword Namgung Jin. At this time, people on the street saw guests and said that this was definitely a tag of 3 horses, but to go out in such a situation. After all, the iron-legged cavalry was located outside. The guy asked him, "What's wrong with that?" He shouldn't worry, they don't care. Chung Hung told the boy that after the investigation, the body would actually be dismembered, so it would be cremated to be sent to the Dark Alliance. And until then, there will be a camp of iron-legged cavalry in front of the academy. Suddenly going outside, San saw Ruin and asked, "Did he come to fight again?" Ruin told him that only if he had trained enough in horse riding. San got angry and shouted that he was an idiot, and Heron can do as he wants. Let him decide for himself whether to join the investigation or not, to stay here after or to leave. Heron thought about it and asked why he needed to leave here. He was a simple student of the Heavenly Warriors Academy who came from the Tai Sword School, and they are not connected with the Bloody Blade Kal He bomb in any way. The warrior at that time told the guys that as soon as he informed them about the arrival of the investigators, they were both already here. And the mission starts tomorrow, so let them say hello and then they can go. The guys replied that they understood everything. Suddenly Rand came up to them from behind and said that they would live here for now. The warrior told the boys that here they were. The warrior told the lady that she must be tired after a long journey. The official program would begin tomorrow, and today he would introduce these 2 to her. And these 2 students will be responsible for escorting and communicating while she is on the territory of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. And this is the Ice Phoenix Narin, the daughter of the head of the Heavenly Alliance and a girl with outstanding abilities. And next to him is the descendant of the Holy Sword. The 7th Divine Sword, Moen Hui, also has extraordinary abilities. The lady listened to them and replied that her name was Yun Sol Ran. The old man asked who the people were that came with her. He wanted to know if they had the right to investigate the case with them. The elder replied that he would be leaving soon, so there was no need to say his name. Since Miss Ran and that child had arrived safely, he would handle the rest today. And it is not necessary to know the name of that child either. But he is an autopsy specialist, so he must definitely take part in the investigation together with Miss Yoon. The old man said that if they all left, only Miss Yoon and that man would remain. The elder replied that given the situation, all issues would be decided by Miss Yoon and the man who was supposed to arrive the day after tomorrow. The old man said they had not received such a message, but who else would arrive? The elder replied that he was a porter who would take the ashes after the investigation was completed. His name was Cho Wool. No need to worry, he was a calm and quiet person. The old man asked in surprise, Cho Wool? He means he will be a porter. One of the top 10 masters of the Dark Alliance, the sword demon Wool, who is among the 10 pillars of the Dark Alliance? The elder said yes, and they say that Chunhak is guarding him. So before handing over the matter to Miss Yoon, I would like to go meet my friends. The old man was surprised and asked him what he was talking about. Ran replied that she wanted to spend the night guarding her brother. He would change his clothes and then let her accompany him. The old man replied that it seemed that it was worth reporting this to the director and the head of the guard squad, the investigator on their side. Ren said that she would go to the director herself. And Rin said that she would walk to the place where the leader of the detachment was supposed to stay. The old man replied that it was fine. Then he would take on the escort of the guests. Even though it's a day early, Hui can accompany Miss Yoon to the Tranquility Pavilion, right? Hui replied that it would be done. At this time, while Snowman decided to start the investigation, a man came and said that a guest of their Dark Alliance had arrived. The commander immediately stood up upon seeing the guest and said that he did not know that he would be the one to come. The elder replied that he was once the successor of the Dark Alliance, so he was obliged. The old man wondered who this man was, that even the captain of the Iron-Leg Cavalry was so polite to him. The elder said that he heard that the ice sword of the top 5 sword masters had divine-level skills. Apparently, he is the ice sword. How long will the ice he created just now last? Ice Sword replied that he would be fine until tomorrow morning. And who is this guest? The elder looked at his man and asked, how? Did they do okay? The guy replied that it was a sarcophagus, cold, dry. Everything was as it should be. If the autopsy was to be performed tomorrow, the coffin could be opened now. The old man asked him what he meant by the autopsy being done tomorrow instead of the day after. He thought it would be more appropriate to open the coffin when the official investigation had already begun. The elder got angry and told him to shut up. First, you have to tear apart the man who was the successor of the Alliance of Darkness, and then tell him what is right and what is wrong. And then the director came up and said that he didn't mean that. They just want to find the real culprit and avoid misunderstandings. But since the closest person to the head of the Dark Alliance himself came in person, they will prepare everything to begin the autopsy immediately. The elder said that there was no need for that. It was enough that when Miss Yoon came to guard him tonight, the coffin was opened. The others would leave. And the captain will be back with him today, too. So let him take the guys from the academy. Miss Yoon, Seal Ran, and Cho Wool will take care of the rest. Rune was at the market at that moment and asked if that stupid crybaby took the medicine. Wouldn't it help him regain his mental abilities? The seller replied that, of course. No matter how much he cried, it would dry his tears and his dull brain would instantly clear up. Ruin said that this was serious. Then let him give 20 pieces and he can throw in 2 more for free. The seller smiled and told him to choose the roundest ones and would add 1 more thing for free. Ruin went straight home, and on the way he saw people mocking a man and throwing arrows at him. The man asked the offender why. After all, he promised half a liang in gold for a delay in payment. Ruin replied, didn't he already say that he hated waiting? And this is the only thing he can say to a customer who came after so long? The boy said no. No more clues could be found about the girl named Rin. She went with her merchant father and disappeared. Ruin started waving the arrow and told him that he was a good player. So why not lie more convincingly this time? In the evening, Chang took his men and led them out of the academy. But he considered Ruin an idiot. After all, at such a moment, to go outside to buy such nonsense. But what kind of terrible energy is emanating from him, he thought. But one day he will definitely avenge his subordinates. At that moment, the servant came to the chief and asked if he had told him too much. Perhaps it would be better to activate the mechanism and mobilize all forces. The chief replied that only then everything here would be destroyed, and they would suffer even greater losses. Does this psycho look like an ordinary person? After all, he won first place at the Festival of the 3 Holy Masters. The guy said that if they say that the girl is dead and someone says that it was fabricated, the chief replied that on the contrary, it would be better if he got more angry and tried to dig deeper. And now he hopes the guy will fall into this trap. Ran also came out of the room and asked Moen to accompany her. Moen showed her around and said that he would return at the hair's hour. Ron entered the room where the coffin lay, and letting go of her veil, turned to her brother and said that she had come. Rand started telling him that he promised her that they would get married in 3 years. And does he know how many years she had to wait? But this is too much. She can't even cry. And she remembered her childhood when she mourned the coffin. But a guy came up to him and handed him a talisman. Rand looked at it and asked, "What is it?" The guy replied that it was a gift, and he congratulated her on her birthday. Rand started crying and saying that her mother and father had died. What birthday? The guy replied that he had to congratulate. The two asked him. Rand was surprised and asked, did the parents ask? The guy said yes. Since she was his fiancée, they asked him to take care of her and make her smile a lot. And so he will do this until they grow up and get married, and he will continue after the wedding, because he likes the way she smiles too. And if anything happens while he's away, send her that jasper pendant he just gave her. He'll come running to protect her. And soon after some time, Rand asked him if he wasn't coming. The guy apologized and said that he would try his best, but he couldn't say for sure, because during closed training, he loses track of time. Rand asked him if he was telling her to spend her birthday alone. He said he would be with her every year on that day. And now he thinks he's a liar. Then she'll send the pendant straight to her for a closed training session. The boy smiled and asked, so that's what she would do? But if he had received that pendant in advance, he would have preferred to postpone the training, because Rand's pendant is of primary importance to him. Rand asked in surprise, right? But this closed training is an opportunity strongly recommended by the head of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion himself. The guy replied that although it was a shame to disappoint the head, it was better than making his future wife cry. Rand agreed and told him to go to his closed training already. It's just a birthday, nothing special. The guy apologized and said he was very sorry. He really wanted to spend the day with her. He would try to finish the training as soon as possible. Rand replied that he was a fool. What if something happened because of the rush? She would stay with her grandfather for now, and he could train properly. The guy agreed and said that he would have to go after her as soon as he was free. She would smile at him radiantly, wouldn't she? Rand replied that it all depended on what he did. He didn't think she smiled happily every time she saw him, did he? And now Rand was saying over his coffin what she had said. It shouldn't have been like that day. It would have been nice to smile brightly at her one more time. But after hearing the news, she was shocked and asked the gentleman what he did when he dropped the glass from his hands. The man replied that this was complete nonsense. God, this child would never do such a thing. Rand also said that it was some kind of mistake. No matter what happened during training, brother never. The man told her not to worry. He would help the leader of the alliance to reveal his grandson's innocence. Rand realized that even though she couldn't do anything, was it worth letting him go then? And if she had stopped her grandfather then, maybe she wouldn't have lost everyone. Who depended on him? Grandfather, uncle, aunt, nephews. Everyone from the uncle with whom she had quarreled since childhood, to the dog. That night, everything turned to ashes. But everyone got so mixed up that it was hard to tell who was where. And now she's asking for forgiveness. She tried so hard to smile brightly at him when they met again. But it feels like it's because of her that everything turned out this way. But not that first. First she has to show it and ask something. And now my brother once said that he would come running if he sent this jasper pendant. So why didn't he recognize her? Earlier, the chief asked her for forgiveness and said that the guy would not recognize anyone now. Neither him nor the pendant. He should have come and apologized for not being able to keep his promise. And then she would have asked. And was this all because of her? The energy in his body was distorted, and he went crazy because he was in a hurry. Because of her childish request? If he had simply refused her then, she would have continued to smile at him. And now she asks him for forgiveness, because she is sorry. The elder said last night that it would be better not to leave the child of the Dark Alliance near the body. It seems he is not the only one who is worried about what is happening inside. The director replied that he simply felt sorry for her, and the noble sword was afraid of her. The elder said that he knew that this child was the bride of the bloody blade. But who knows what kind of insidious orders she received in the Dark Alliance? And if the girl does something with the body to put all the blame on them, they won't be able to keep the situation under control. The director said that fortunately, she doesn't do anything like that. Miss Yoon's parents were close friends with the leader of the Dark Alliance. They suffered while pursuing the remnants of the Heavenly Calamity members under a secret order. The maternal grandfather who took care of the young lady after that incident became a victim of a family tragedy during the investigation of the Bloody Blade case. But for the leader of the Dark Alliance, Miss Yoon is even more precious than her own son, Kal Haibong. She wants to know the cause of the Bloody Blade's death more than anyone else. After all, if it's about the Bloody Blade, only she can be trusted by the leader of the Dark Alliance. In addition, the flower of evil in Seol Ran was accompanied by Old Man Jin himself. The fact that he came in person is equivalent to the arrival of the leader of the Dark Alliance, and his requests are the leader of the Alliance. The elder was surprised and asked, "Was there such a person in the Alliance of Darkness?" He had never heard such a name or nickname. The director said that he doesn't deal with external affairs, so he doesn't have a nickname. And only two people know his name. Old Man Jin is the nickname that the leader of the Dark Alliance calls him. The elder understood and replied that this Jin was a shadow guardian. And the two who knew his real name were probably himself and the leader of the Alliance. The director laughed and said that, strangely enough, the current leader of the Dark Alliance does not know. Only his father, the previous leader of the Dark Alliance, the demon warrior Kal Jun Hek, knows his name. And Old Man Jin is a servant of the demon warrior and helps the current leader of the Dark Alliance according to the order of the latter. So it is the demon warrior who is the real master of this old man. The elder asked, "Does this mean that the god of war, who lives in seclusion, is also aware of what happened?" The director replied that even if he didn't know now, he would know as soon as Old Man Jin finished assessing the situation. Fortunately, they still had one more trick up their sleeve. At this time, Heron was in his room eating. But he tried to say something, but his mouth was full of food. Rune didn't understand him and said that since he couldn't speak like a human being, his intellect hadn't recovered yet. Here's another one for him. Changhong didn't like it and told him to stop. He would eat one at a time. And this is what he said. "And he's sane, so stop shoving food at him before he chokes." Ryuan came over and asked if he could add another one. Changhong said that the idiot said that he was going to buy medicine that would help him come to his senses. But in reality, he went out to buy it in such a situation. Ruin told him that he didn't know because he blindly believed in the power of the bellflower root, but it was an effective medicine against whims and for fools. And suddenly Heron said that he had come to his senses now. He had a lot of things to do from now on. Chung Hong asked in surprise, "A lot of things?" He was talking about tomorrow's investigation? But that was impossible. Heron replied that he simply meant that he would train even harder from now on. As Brother Chang said, he was a disciple of the Heavenly Warrior Academy who had no relation to the Bloodblade, and he is grateful to Ryuan, and he will eat everything with pleasure. Chang Hong answered that they are friends, so he will only take 3 nyan per skewer and another 5 for delivery. Chung Hong was surprised and wasn't sure if one of them had come to his senses or not, but the other one's mood had definitely changed after arriving. And why are these two so nervous? Tomorrow everything should go smoothly. In the evening, Sol and Rin were eating, and the younger one said that she thought Heron was still in a state of shock. What would happen to him now? After all, people from the Dark Alliance came. What if they take Mr. Heron with them? But that definitely won't happen. The girl told her that she was saying some strange things. Since he was following the dark path, shouldn't he return to the Dark Alliance? But the question is rather, why was the son of the leader of the Dark Alliance hiding in the Academy of Heavenly Warriors in the first place? Sol said that Mr. Heron is indeed on a dark path, but he is so kind and gentle and so bright when he smiles. The girl asked her if she had really given her heart to a man from the Dark Alliance. How could she have been taken in by the appearance of a man, especially one who was walking the dark path? And no matter how sweet he may seem on the outside, no matter how kind he may be at first, in the end, he may plunge her into the abyss of hell. Sol said that this is nonsense. Mr. Heron is not like that at all. And since he studies at the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, it means that he is on the bright path. The girl asked her what kind of nonsense she was talking about. The fact that a person of such status came here was already a problem. Sol cried and replied that the master is not only the son of the leader of the Dark Alliance. And anyway, Rin, It turns out that she is his cousin, isn't it? Suddenly, the girl realized and said that she was rude to her and asked her sister for forgiveness. Rin replied that everything was fine. She had never had any contact with them because apart from her parents, she had no other relatives and could not have any. However, she believes that a person's belonging to the dark or light path does not depend on origin or blood relationship. The girl thought about it and told her sister that it was true. She needed to cool down and sleep with this thought, so she would leave first. But Sul said it was curfew. Would Ren's sister be okay? And she was too carried away. But when someone said that Mr. Heron was a bad person, she couldn't stand it. Rin told her that since she knew it was late, it was time for her to go back too. Sul said that was it. Is it okay if she takes everything? He doesn't know where she got them. They're rare at the academy. Rin replied that she didn't buy it. Earlier, her sister saw Ryuan come and asked him how he dared to come here. Did he want to die? Ruin replied that not at all. He was just passing by and decided to give the young lady a present. It's not a mortal sin. The girl said that it was nonsense. And the fact that he showed up at a women's dorm was already a crime. Rin walked up to him and asked what happened. His expression wasn't very good. Chung Hong replied as expected from Miss Na. It was nothing special, just a guy saying some stupid things. He doesn't even know where that person is or if he's safe. Rin asked him if he found out anything, and she remembered that he said he wanted to ask her something when he found her. And she realized that he was talking about the one he was looking for. Rin asked him if he had found out anything about her. Ryun replied that he had. Then he remembered that she was also looking for someone, so he came in out of comradely sympathy. Rin asked him, so he heard bad news today. Let him tell her if there was anything she could do to help. Ryun replied that no, it was mostly just nonsense. But thanks to her, he was able to find a response in her soul. Rin said that she was pleased to hear that he wanted to help her. Ryun said that was good. Then he would also help in the future, to find the person she was looking for. Rin realized that he didn't know that the one he was looking for and the one she was looking for were the same person. Sol told her sister that she also received them from someone. And Mr. Heron is not really going to return to the Dark Alliance, is he? Rin told her to ask him if she was that worried. Sometimes even a simple question could change the outcome. Suddenly, Rin came out of the room and met Moen. But then Ran came to them after meeting with her brother. Moen saw that during the night she had changed the outfit that was under her morning clothes. Ran said that it was because of her that they had to wait so long. Hui said no, and in his mind he thought, what was that bright dress? It looked like a wedding dress. But he decided he shouldn't worry. That person had nothing to do with her. And then the director came in and said that the day had come. For the sake of darkness and light, they might as well begin. On the street, the guards said that it was very good that the iron-legged cavalry had suddenly retreated. But what was going on now? The guy replied that they didn't know either. And he also didn't understand why the iron-legged cavalry initially came with a team of red falcons and others. The second guy said he heard too. They brought a coffin. Wouldn't that be a problem for their side? The guy in the cloak replied that apparently a non-disclosure order had been handed down from above. He wasn't aware of the details, but it seemed like the eldest son of the leader of the Dark Alliance was in the coffin, so the situation was bad. The second guy was surprised and asked, the eldest son of the leader of the Dark Alliance? Why did they even drag this damn coffin to the academy? And where did he hear about it if everyone was ordered to keep quiet? The guy replied that his family's trading guild was passing by the Dark Alliance, so he learned about it from his older brother's letter. Many families of the Dark Path even throw parties in honor of this. The second guy asked him, what was he talking about? The boy replied that they were all said to be so happy that the bloody blade of Kal Hebon had finally died. And the family and friends of the clans that suffered from the bloody blades celebrate this event. Although, of course, another reason is given for the feast. A birthday, or a wedding anniversary, or recovery from an injury. The second guy was surprised and asked, does the head of the Dark Alliance allow this? The guy replied that no, on the contrary, they do it so that the leader will notice. On the Dark Path, money and power rule, so if the opposition's power grows, one day they will even kill the leader of the Dark Alliance. The second guy asked, but why was the coffin with his son's body brought here? Maybe one of them did it, but then a war will start? Although their headache was destroyed, within the Dark Alliance itself, everything is not so clear. The guy answered that it was true. Maybe that's why the iron-legged cavalry did nothing. Whoever did this, He contributed greatly to the split in the dark path. The guy said that he was definitely a hero, but it would be hard for the student who pulled this off to survive. And the head of the Dark Alliance who lost his son, and then the demons will try to kill him. Suddenly, someone attacked them and threw a stone right at them. They all scattered and got scared, but they didn't understand what had happened. The stranger said that a lot had changed here. Apparently, now at the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, students practiced more with their tongues than with their swords. The stranger asked where Peng Su's stone hand was. At this time, the director was surprised and asked the guy. He said what was found inside the body.